She was the only one who noticed the warning light, seconds before disaster. In that split second between ordinary life and chaos, Emily Chen made a choice that would either save hundreds of lives or end her own. What happened next would change everything she thought she knew about courage, duty, and the true cost of being right when everyone else is wrong. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. And please like and subscribe for more videos. Like this. Emily adjusted her glasses and stared at the control panel in front of her. The subway command center hummed with its usual rhythm. Monitors flickered with camera feeds from 30 different stations across the city. Her shift had started at 6 in the morning, same as always. She was 28 years old, had been working this job for 3 years, and most days felt exactly the same. Coffee in a paper cup, the smell of electronics and recycled air, the distant rumble of trains moving through tunnels deep underground. She took a sip of her coffee and glanced at the clock. 7:15. Rush hour was building. Thousands of people were already underground, heading to work, to school, to wherever Monday mornings took them. On her main screen, she could see crowds gathering on platforms, people checking phones, a mother holding her daughter's hand, an old man reading a newspaper. Normal. Everything was normal. Her colleague Marcus sat 3 stations down from her, focused on his own set of monitors. He was scrolling through his phone, half paying attention to the screens. Their supervisor, Mr. Patterson, was in his office behind them, door closed, probably on another conference call. Emily was used to being the most attentive person in the room. It was just how she was built. Her mother used to say she noticed things other people missed, that she had a gift for seeing patterns where others saw randomness. That gift had never mattered much in this job. Until today, at 7:17, something caught her eye. A small red indicator on the pressure monitoring system for tunnel section 42. It was barely visible, just a tiny dot among hundreds of other indicators. Most people would have missed it entirely. The reading showed a pressure fluctuation of 0.03%. Nothing significant. Within normal parameters. The system had not triggered any alerts, but Emily noticed it anyway. She leaned closer to her screen, squinting at the numbers. The pressure reading jumped again. 0.05% now. Still within acceptable range, but the pattern bothered her. Pressure in subway tunnels did not fluctuate like that, not during normal operations. It remained steady, predictable, constant. She pulled up the historical data for Tunnel 42. Over the past 15 minutes, there had been 6 small fluctuations, each one slightly larger than the last. Individually, they meant nothing. Together, they formed a pattern that made her stomach tighten. Emily grabbed her radio. "Marcus, are you seeing anything unusual on Tunnel 42? He barely looked up from his phone. "Negative. All systems green on my end. Can you check the pressure readings? I am seeing some fluctuations." "Fluctuations within normal range are not a concern, Emily. You know that." She did know that. The training manual was clear. Minor variations were expected. The automated systems would alert them if anything required action. Trust the technology. That was rule number 1. But something felt wrong. She switched camera views to Tunnel 42. The feed showed a standard maintenance tunnel, dimly lit, empty except for the usual equipment. Rails stretching into darkness. Support beams every 10 meters. Cables running along the ceiling. Nothing out of place. 7:21. Another pressure spike. 0.08%. Emily stood up and walked over to Marcus. Look at this pattern. 6 fluctuations in 18 minutes, each one bigger than the last. Marcus glanced at her screen for maybe 3 seconds. Emily, the system would have flagged it if there was a problem. That is literally what we pay millions for. Automated monitoring. What if the system is wrong? The system is not wrong. It is calibrated every week. But what if something is happening that the system was not designed to detect? Marcus sighed. He was 10 years older than Emily, had been doing this job for twice as long. You are overthinking this. Again, remember last month when you thought you saw a pattern in the ventilation system? Turned out to be nothing. Or the month before when you were convinced there was a communication delay? Also nothing. You need to trust the technology. Emily felt heat rising in her face. He was right about those times. She had been wrong before. But this felt different. This felt real. She walked back to her station. 7:24. Another spike. 0.1%. Her hands were shaking slightly as she typed commands into her terminal. She pulled up geological surveys of the area around Tunnel 42. It was an older section of the subway system, built in 1973. The tunnel ran beneath the financial district, directly under some of the oldest buildings in the city. The geological report showed stable bedrock, no concerns. Last updated 3 years ago. 3 years was a long time. Emily opened the maintenance logs. Tunnel 42 had received routine inspection 6 months ago. All clear. Before that, 9 months. All clear. Nothing scheduled for another 3 months. 7:27. 0.13%. She pulled up the train schedule. In 8 minutes, the 7:35 express would enter Tunnel 42. That train carried, on average, 800 passengers during Monday morning rush hour. 800 people who had no idea that pressure was building in the tunnel they were about to enter. 800 people who trusted that someone was paying attention, that the systems worked, that they were safe. Emily's heart was pounding now. She could feel it in her throat, behind her eyes. Every instinct she had was screaming that something was wrong. But she had no proof. Just a pattern that might mean nothing. Just a feeling that could be completely mistaken. She thought about Marcus dismissing her concerns. About all the other times she had been wrong. About how embarrassing it would be to raise an alarm over nothing. How it might cost her this job she needed. How everyone would remember her as the person who panicked over 0.13%, 7:29. 0.18%. Emily stood up so fast her chair rolled backward and hit the desk behind her. She walked straight to Mr. Patterson's office and knocked hard on the door. She did not wait for permission. She opened it. He looked up from his computer, annoyed. "What is it, Chen?" "I am in the middle of something. We need to halt the 7:35 express. Right now." His expression shifted from annoyed to incredulous. "Excuse me." Tunnel 42 was showing pressure fluctuations. "I think there is structural instability." Mr. Patterson stood up. "What are the system alerts showing?" "There are no alerts. But the pattern indicates something is building. We need to stop that train." "Let me get this straight. You want to halt a train carrying hundreds of passengers, disrupt the entire morning schedule, and cause a cascade. Delay across the whole system because you think you see a pattern that our multi-million monitoring system missed." "Yes, sir. That is exactly what I am saying." He stared at her for a long moment. "Chen, Do you have any idea what it costs to halt a train? Any idea of the chaos that causes? And you want to do this based on a hunch? Based on data, sir. The pressure readings are there. You can see them yourself. Readings within normal parameters. I am looking at the dashboard right now. Everything is green. Please, sir, just look at the pattern. Look at the progression. Mr. Patterson walked out of his office to her station. Marcus joined them, sensing something important was happening. The three of them stood around Emily's monitor, looking at the numbers she had pulled up. 731.24%. That is still within acceptable range, Mr. Patterson said, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. The rate of increase is accelerating, Emily said. Do you see? It is not linear. It is exponential. Whatever is happening down there is getting worse, and it is getting worse faster. Marcus leaned in closer. She might have a point. That curve does look unusual. 732.31%. Mr. Patterson pulled out his phone. His hands were not quite steady. If I make this call and you are wrong, your career in this industry is over. You understand that? No one will hire you after this. Emily looked at the clock. The 7:35 express was 3 minutes from entering Tunnel 42. 800 people, mothers and daughters, old men with newspapers, people who had lives and families and futures. I understand, sir. Stop the train. He made the call. Emily could hear him talking to the train operator, his voice urgent now. This is Command Central. Halt the 7:35 express immediately. Do not enter Tunnel 42. This is a priority emergency stop. The seconds that followed felt like hours. Emily watched the camera feed showing the train approaching the tunnel entrance. She could see it slowing, the brake lights brightening, the wheels screeching. It came to a stop exactly 100 meters before the tunnel entrance. 734.42%. Then everything happened at once. On the monitor showing the interior of Tunnel 42, Emily saw movement. The walls seemed to shift, just slightly, like the whole tunnel was taking a breath. Then a crack appeared in the ceiling, thin as a hair at first, then widening rapidly. Support beams began to twist. The camera feed shook violently, and then the tunnel collapsed. Tons of concrete and steel and earth fell inward, crushing the rails, filling the space where a train should have been, where 800 people would have been if Emily had stayed quiet, if she had trusted the system. If she had been wrong, the camera went dark. The control room was completely silent. Emily could hear her own breathing, too loud in the quiet. Marcus was staring at the blank screen, his face pale. Mr. Patterson still had his phone in his hand, frozen in place. Get emergency services down there now, Mr. Patterson finally said, his voice barely above a whisper, and someone find out what the hell just happened. Over the next few hours, the story emerged piece by piece. A water main had been leaking deep underground for months, maybe longer. The leak was small, almost undetectable, but constant. It had been slowly eroding the foundation beneath Tunnel 42, washing away the soil that supported the concrete structure. The geological surveys had not caught it because it was happening too deep, too slowly. The automated monitoring system had not flagged it because the pressure changes were within normal parameters when viewed individually, but Emily had seen the pattern. Engineers arrived and confirmed what Emily had already known. If that train had entered the tunnel, the additional weight and vibration would have triggered the collapse with 800 people inside. the survival rate would have been close to zero. The rescue operation would have taken weeks. The death toll would have been catastrophic. By evening, news crews had gathered outside the subway headquarters. The story was spreading fast. Anonymous worker saves hundreds from subway disaster. Emily found herself sitting in a conference room with people whose titles she did not understand, answering questions, reliving those terrible minutes over and over again. They asked her how she knew. She tried to explain about the pattern, about the progression, about the feeling in her gut that something was wrong. But the truth was, she could not fully explain it. Some part of her had just known, had seen what others missed, had trusted herself when every voice around her said not to. Mr. Patterson came to see her before she left that night. Chen, I owe you an apology. If you had listened to me, if you had backed down when I questioned you, we would be dealing with the worst disaster in this city's history right now. Instead, everyone gets to go home tonight. Because of you. Emily nodded. She did not trust herself to speak. I am recommending you for a commendation, he continued, and a promotion. We need people who notice things, who trust their instincts, who are willing to be wrong if it means they might be right. After he left, Emily sat alone in the conference room for a long time. She thought about all those people on the train who would never know how close they came. They would go home tonight, kiss their families, complain about the delay, never realizing that the inconvenience saved their lives. They would wake up tomorrow and go back to the subway, trusting that someone was watching, that the systems worked, that they were safe. And now Emily understood the weight of that trust. The responsibility of being the person who notices, the burden of being right when everyone else is wrong. It was not about being a hero. It was about choosing to speak up even when you might be wrong, even when it costs you everything, because the alternative is unthinkable. She thought about the warning light, that tiny red dot on her screen, 0.03%. Nothing significant. Within normal parameters. Easy to miss. Easy to ignore. But she had not ignored it. She had paid attention. She had trusted herself. And because of that, 800 people were alive tonight who might not have been Dot. Emily stood up and gathered her things. Her hands had stopped shaking. Tomorrow she would come back to this control room and watch those monitors again. She would notice patterns and trust her instincts and speak up when something felt wrong. Because that was what this job really was. Not watching screens or trusting automated systems. It was being human in a world that ran on technology. It was caring enough to pay attention when attention mattered most. As she walked out of the building into the cool evening air, Emily realized something important. We all have moments when we see something others miss. When we notice a pattern or feel something is wrong or sense danger that no one else perceives. And in those moments, we have a choice. We can stay quiet, trust the system, avoid the risk of being wrong. Or we can speak up, take the chance, trust ourselves even when no one else does. Emily had made her choice. She had spoken up, and 800 people were alive because of it. 800 people who would never know her name, never thank her, never realize how close they came to disaster. But Emily would know, and that was enough. The real question is not whether we will notice the warning signs in our own lives. The question is what we will do when we notice them. Will we trust ourselves? Will we speak up? Will we take the risk of being wrong if it means we might save someone? Because sometimes the difference between tragedy and survival is one person who pays attention, one person who cares enough to notice, one person who is brave enough to act. Emily Chen was that person. And on that Monday morning in the subway control room, she proved that sometimes the smallest observations can have the biggest impact. That trusting yourself matters more than trusting technology. That courage is not about being fearless. It is about being terrified and doing the right thing anyway. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more videos like this.